Again, welcome everyone to this webinar on accessible documents. My name is Susanna Lorin. I'm the IAAP and G3ICT representative to the EU. And today we're going to have a series of short presentations on accessible documents. Then we'll have a panel discussion, and then we open up for Q&A from the audience. And you are welcome to write your questions to the speakers in the Q&A function. At any time. We will just make sure that we respond to all of them by the end of this session. The meeting is automatically captioned via Zoom, and the session is recorded and will be uploaded on the YouTube channel afterwards. And everyone registered will get an email afterwards with the link to the recording. So today's agenda is first a little bit of housekeeping, which is happening right now. And then we will hear from Markus Erle, who is the CEO of Access 4, on how the standard PDF UA2 is reinventing PDF accessibility. So that is exciting. I guess that standard is going to solve everything. And then we get a short introduction also from Jane Black, who is the accessibility lead for UK, Europe, and everything that is not the US for a company named Crawford Technologies. And she will talk about automation of document accessibility. And then we have another brief presentation from Peter Kemeny on efficient remediation, combining automatic and manual tools, or automatic tools and manual remediation to get a good result out of that. Then we have a panel discussion period set off, and then we have the possibility to respond to the questions today. And just to also present images of our speakers, but you will soon see them live. But these are the speakers of today. And just a little bit about IAAP EU. As you probably know, IAAP is a global organization. We have members in more than 100 countries. And to serve our members as much as possible, we also have local and regional chapters. For example, there is a German-speaking chapter called DACH, covering Germany, Austria, and the German-speaking parts of Switzerland. And I know they have a webinar at exactly the same time as this webinar, so that is bad planning, partly my fault. But that is a very active chapter where they can speak in German and have meetups and things like that. That is very locally flavored, if you will. And the same, we have a Nordic chapter covering Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden. And we are doing the same in the Nordics. So that is kind of how we make sure that the benefits are really targeting members, no matter where they stay. But we do not have chapters in all parts of the European Union. And that is why we also have what is called the EU program, which I lead. That is not a chapter, so you can't be a member of IAAP EU. You are a member of IAAP, and then for everyone making business in the EU or living in the EU, we try to provide as much EU-specific programs and events and so on as we can. So there's kind of an extra bonus for anyone interested in what is happening in the EU. So I will now stop sharing so that I can leave the floor to, I guess Markus is the first one who is doing the first presentation. I showed the agenda and immediately forgot who was first. But very welcome to this. I know you have been so much involved in document standards, and you were in Japan fixing the last bits and pieces of this. So I'm really excited to learn how this new standard can, or the updated version of the standard can help us all to make documents accessible or PDFs accessible. Please, Markus.
So thank you, Susanna, for this introduction and for organizing this. I hope you can see now my slides.
Yes.
And welcome from my side. Today, I'm talking not about legislation or guidelines related to document accessibility. I'm talking about a format-specific standard, PDF UA. And there are two reasons for doing this. The first one, isn't this a thrilling topic? And the second is 2 new versions have been published in spring this year, end of February, start of March, and it is very promising. And Susanna already said, oh, maybe this standard is solving everything. And I have to admit, currently, PDF UA2, the new version, is solving nothing at all, but it's very promising. And that's what we want to discover together here. So let me first give you a little bit of context and why are standards needed at all? In the end, every user with disabilities needs a high rate of individualization, customization to really be able to consume content in the best way. And we only can manage this. We can only achieve this by using standards, by using standards as the fundament for accessible content. And the first version, PDF UA1, has invented PDF accessibility, invented in the sense of grounded and harmonized, because it's the basic. And the interesting thing is, it is valid for documents as well as for authoring tools, viewers, and assistive technology. It is building a complete ecosystem, because only then it is possible for a user who really needs accessible content to consume it in the best way. These 4 aspects have to work together. And it is still the PDF accessibility standard. It remains your benchmark. My honest estimation is at least for the next 12 months, because, you know, every time a new standards pops up, the tools have to support it and so on, and this takes some time. And the first challenge here is even PDF UA1 is not supported in the best way, or is not fulfilled, and even not the fundamentals of PDF accessibility are fulfilled. Right now, I talk to you not as the CEO of Access4. I'm the chair of an international working group that is hosted by the PDF Association, and we are working out the new PDF accessibility techniques, and we have worked out the fundamentals of PDF accessibility. And let me introduce the 5 fundamentals. Very easy, basic technical rules are followed related to the PDF spec, in this case 1.7. Text content is machine readable. That is really important. Imagine a screen reader is a machine who wants to read the content. So this is absolutely accessibility related. A separation between real content and artifacts is needed. The 4th is the logical content order is defined. And the 5th, semantically appropriate tagging is needed. These are the fundamentals. And then all the other requirements are coming on top. And the good news is, let's say fundamental 1 to 4 is fulfilled by good tools, by good software. And you as an author or remediator, you should care about the 5th, semantically appropriate tagging. And good to know is as well, we as a working group, we are publishing a reference mechanism so that it is easy for software providers to prove that their software is supporting the PDF accessibility fundamentals, and for decision makers, remediators, and users, they can evaluate the tools based on their support of the fundamentals, so that it's easier to decide to choose good tools that really simplify the whole process. And we all know a lot of our challenges related to PDF accessibility are related to bad software, bad tools. So now is PDF UA2 coming into play. How is PDF UA2 reinventing PDF accessibility? The first thing is it's completely new written. It is based on another PDF standard 2.0. And therefore, a lot of new features are part of it. And the most thrilling thing is PDF UA2 offers an extended semantic richness. There are a lot of new tags. A title tag, for example, you think, oh, that's not thrilling because HTML has it since ages. Yes, but it's new in PDF. Aside is my favorite because now you can mark content that is not part of the main flow of the content, and you can really locate it and tag it accordingly. And there are much more new tags. This is only an amuse-gueule, a short appetizer. I give you some links at the end of my 5 minutes where you can dive deeper into this topic. And the second part of the extended semantic richness is the brand new namespace concept. So you are not limited to the PDF tags. You can integrate several additional tag sets into your PDF. Let's say you want to get the rich semantics of EPUB, or you have a mathematical document, educational content, or something like this. Then you can use the MathML tag set or even other custom XML sets. And this is really huge. This is really massive. So PDF has been and is still a container format. So now this is valid for accessibility and for accessible content as well. So there is really a huge progress in making PDF content accessible. The other conceptual part of UA2 is it is a radical co-standard. No content provisions, no requirements related to your content. It is all related to PDF mechanisms. So it is a co-standard. You need the other standards, let's say WCAG, for example, to get all the requirements related to the content. Let's say contrast things, understandable text, and so on. And UA2 is only covering the typical or the PDF-specific requirements. Good to know. A file is either UA1 compliant or UA2 compliant. You cannot combine it. So what is your part now? No panic, but be prepared. So get to know the new possibilities, the new standards. There is a free version, kind of it, because with PDF UA2, the well-tagged PDF specification has been published. And there you have two compliance levels. It is for reuse. This is the low level, but for accessibility, this is the high level. And this is a one-to-one thing with PDF UA2. You get the link from me, read the well-tagged PDF specification, and there you get a good explanation about the new tags, the new possibilities, and so on. So be informed and promote it, because it offers a new level of PDF accessibility, especially for educational content. And we need you to promote it, because if it's not supported, a standard is dead. A new standard is dead. So the first thing is one of the big players, one of the big viewers has to support it. It's not the case so far. You all know the Adobe Reader. It can open a PDF UA2 file, but it cannot benefit from the new features. So we estimate it's coming in this year, but this is not sure. Is it Adobe? Is it Foxit or one of the big players? So be ready to support it as soon as one of the big viewers is supporting it. And choose already now your tools wisely and ask for the support of UA1 and UA2 and the support of the PDF accessibility fundamentals. I have here some useful links. For example, the well-tagged PDF specification. It's available for free. There is a great, these are some results from our working group. and I'm looking forward to your questions in the Q&A session and to the panel. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Markus. So we will share those links with you both in the chat and then in the email afterwards. So no need to read them out loud here because we also need to move on a little bit. So if I could ask Jane to come on camera and...
Hi there.
Yes, hi there. And I think you need to stop sharing.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, thank you very much. That was very good. Now we know that the standard doesn't solve everything, but that it has loads of cool things that we need to look out for. So that's really good. And now we are going to hear about automation and document accessibility. Please, Jane, how can that help us?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for inviting me to speak today. It's great. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about why automation in document accessibility solutions is really necessary, and then also where it can be used most effectively. And to illustrate why it's necessary, I wanted to start with a real world example. So we work with a lot of customers globally, and I wanted to share some figures to illustrate the challenge that some European companies, particularly ones that we're working with, are facing, and just the sort of scale of the problem, I guess. So I've popped some figures up there on the screen. The first box is 50 million. So this particular company has 50 million customers. They have 500 different PDF document types that they deliver to their customers, and at least one document per customer is delivered every month, and those documents have an average of 5 pages. So that's 60 pages that are going to be delivered per customer per year, times by 50 million customers. So that's a lot of pages of PDF going out to this particular company's customers. If you look at their digital portals, so things like their apps and their portal online on their website, there's an average of around 250,000 document pages that are downloaded every day via those portals. So that's their customer documents. Then you have what's on their website. So on their website, they have around 35,000 PDF documents. And that's just on the main company website. They also have additional URLs and other affiliated websites as well. And then I'm going to put up the last figure for you. And this is the number of people in their document accessibility team. So why is automation necessary? Well, primarily it's necessary for organizations to be able to scale and to deliver accessible documents either to their customers or out to the wider public. For organizations to be able to act on their commitment to document accessibility, they've got to be able to call on enterprise level solutions that leverage automation in order to deliver accessible documents out to their customers. And then if you think about those sort of high volume customer documents within an organization, these are sort of high volume enterprise document workflows that produce and deliver these customer communications on a daily basis. And these are already automated. So these are workflows within an organization that are already automated. And what organizations need to do in order to map accessibility onto those is to have automated accessibility solutions that can work with them and enhance their existing processes. So also on the process point, for some document types, so if I think particularly about the 35,000 PDF documents that are on that particular customer's website, one of the challenges that they had is that there was no process in order to route those documents, find those documents, test those documents, or remediate those documents. It was a lot of people at certain points emailing each other or sending instant messages. So for some organizations and for some document types, it's actually necessary to help them build a process, an automated process that means that they can achieve the outcomes that they've set for themselves. And all of that when it comes to businesses and, why are documents, I think, Susanna, you asked why are there so many documents not accessible when we were talking before. You know, I think it's got to be able to be delivered in a timely manner. Companies have got to be able to get to market in a reasonable time frame, and they've got to be able to control their costs. And automation is part of the answer to both of those aspects. And ultimately what that means is that we can deliver successful outcomes. So businesses can deliver successful outcomes for themselves and their customer base, and they can also deliver accessible documents widely out into the public arena. So where's it most effective? Where is automation most effective? There's three areas that I just want to touch on briefly today. One is for those high volume customer documents, so delivering tagged and optimized PDF documents in a high volume workflow. The other is for facilitating a successful program to make sure that website and internal PDF documents are accessible, and that means often building a process around it. And the other is testing and validating PDF documents at scale. So let's look at that first one first. So high volume documents. So this is how, or automation is how you drive accessibility at scale. So delivering tagged and optimized PDF documents in a high volume workflow and having automated solutions for document accessibility means that you can build accessibility applications that can tag documents and customer communications at the level that they're being produced, that you can use high performance applications to drive real-time accessibility processing. So when a customer downloads a document, they can be sure that it's in an accessible format. Automated solutions can provide that seamless integration with the existing automated processes that are running inside organizations, which means less disruption to the organization and therefore easier adoption by the people who are putting these solutions in place. And overall, it shortens the time to market and controls the cost of accessibility document projects, which makes them more likely to be implemented. And that ultimately gives customers and users a better experience. Then let's look at how automation can be used to facilitate a successful internal PDF remediation process. So if you create an automated remediation process with a low barrier to entry, because it's easy to use and people don't have to have any specialist knowledge in order to be able to use it, then it's easy for you to roll that out across your organization. So what do I mean by that? So often within a company, there are lots of people that are producing documents, and not all of those people have accessibility knowledge. So they need some way of being able to either check documents or route documents for remediation. And this needs to be something that can be handled by the people at the other end, the accessibility team, if you like. So if you build automation into that, there's a few things that you can do. You can automate, for example, the locating of documents. So you can automate how you find, for example, documents on your website. You can automate how you test and prioritize those documents for remediation. So you can have things like analytics tools that link in with regular web scanning for documents. So I'm not talking about web scanning for web pages, I'm talking about scanning websites for documents. And you're able to link those with your analytics tools and understand what are the priority documents. You can use then a rules-driven workflow to sort of triage and route those documents into remediation channels. And this is done with automation, so nobody actually has to click these buttons, if you like, or send the email or make the phone call. And then you can reduce manual processes by templating some remediation by different document types, and also use things like AI-driven tagging and AI in desktop tools to reduce some of the manual remediation time for any documents that do still need to go through a manual remediation process. So building an internal remediation process and using automation within that is one way for organizations to be able to tackle a problem and actually make it manageable. And then the last area is really in the testing and validating of PDF documents at scale. So again, if you have a lot of documents, your testing and validation solutions need to be able to scale too. So you can use the automated testing of individual PDF documents, obviously, to guide remediation, and that is that is useful, but you can also create a testing workflow with automated solutions so that you can validate PDF documents without the need to manually submit those documents. So for example, you could have a workflow where documents were automatically routed to a series of folders prior to publishing so that they could be tested and then maybe even routed on for manual checks or other remediation afterwards. You can also, with automated testing and validation at scale, you can simultaneously test and validate multiple PDFs at the same time so that you can prioritize files for remediation, route problem documents into a remediation workflow, and all of that can be automated. Again, saving time and money and making it much easier for it to actually be put into practice. And you can produce summary and individual validation reports with sort of failed criteria and error location when you're validating those documents at scale, so you can collect those in a summary or in a series of individual reports, and you can actually bundle those to send on to anybody who might need to do any correcting of those documents if they're not going to be routed through the automated workflow. So that's the final, I think, reason or place where this can be used most effectively. And so, of course, automation can't fix everything, but used properly, it can help organizations accelerate the successful delivery of their document accessibility programs. And that's definitely something that I'm sure we all want to see happening, and something that will mean that many more PDF documents in the public domain are accessible in the future.
Okay, perfect. Very much. Thank you very much, Jane. So now we have had two presentations. None of them are actually fixing everything. You're not at least you're not promising too much, which is good. but we have a standard that fixes some of it. We have automation that fixes some of it. So now we hope that, Peter, you can end your presentation with "I'm actually fixing everything," or what are we suspecting to or expecting to happen when we talk about efficient remediation? Peter, please let us know how that can be done.
Well, I share my screen, first of all. Hope it's the right one. Yeah, maybe not everything, but I was thinking of going through some basic idea or basic guidance on how, when you have a document in front of you, we mainly focus on PDF today, apparently. What should you do? What are the steps or tricks that help you make this process more efficient? And most of it is based on my own experience. So my own pain may come through the presentation. So it's again 5 tips. It's not the same ones as Marcus had. But actually, it aimed basically the same thing, is to have a document that's accessible, and not only technically, but fully. So it's not only the correct text, or it's not only fully tagged, but it's correctly tagged, and it is presented in a way that's easy, that's understandable and easy to understand, and of course, technically perceived by assistive technology. So the fine things are, first of all, to have an overall approach. First step is always to understand the structure of the document, understand the document. You can start remediating, just open it and start remediating tag by tag, but then it will cause you a lot of pain afterwards. You might realize that, I didn't do it like that before, and this is a better solution. So let's tag these headers actually instead as normal paragraphs, because it would result in having too many headers or too low-level headers, which doesn't really help understanding the structure. It could make it confusing. So first, look at the document, see the structure, understand the header structure, understand where you should use lists and where you should use just normal paragraphs, for example, and that way you would you can get a coherent approach. You can decide early on which elements, images should be actually decorative and which have meaning, and do it in a coherent way. So first, sit back, look at the whole document, because it takes a bit of time, but it can save a lot of time down the road for you. The next one is to have a workflow. To create a workflow as a remediator that can help you be more efficient. The most important thing for me is to find errors early on, because, for example, if the language is not set or is set a bit different for different tags, it's easier to go back in the beginning to the authoring format, go back to Word, for example. With 2 clicks, you can set the language and you can save a lot of time. Otherwise, you might need to check one by one and change them one by one, and it can be painful. Then you can have other issues, which actually the back checker that Marcus mentioned can call your attention to. So first start with this checker and look for things that you should fix early on. Then workflow allows you to have an efficient order of steps. What does it mean? Sometimes you fix something and then you, for example, you decide you realize that there are quotations in the text and you want to have them, of course, marked as tagged as quotation. If you do that afterwards, setting up a list structure, for example, then it can break up your list structure. You have to rearrange your tags again. It's a bit of extra work, and it can mount up if you have a longer document. So having a workflow helps you do the things in a more efficient order. And it can also help you fixing problems in batch if that's your work style. If you want to rename tags in a batch, it can speed up your process, but you should do it again at the right point in your work. Now, as I mentioned, authoring format, you don't always have, as a remediator, you don't always have access to the authoring format, but it's useful to ask for it and have it, because, as I mentioned again, you can change things with 2 clicks in the authoring format, for example, setting the language or setting a coherent style structure for the headings. And also, if you find a typo and you want to fix it, it's easier to do it in the authoring format early on. If you have the authoring format, you might decide to export it with a different tool to PDF, because apparently the different export ways, even what Word offers, the Save As or the Save As Adobe PDF, result in different problems. So depending on what, in the first step, you know what is the structure and the content of the document. So depending on that, you can choose the right export option, and that can cause you then less headache. And these things are still there. Hopefully, as the applications develop, it won't be a problem. You won't need to choose between ways of exporting because they will be all good. But at this point, it's important, and it can save you a lot of work. And automate. Jen already talked about automation. There are tools that help you, well, obviously assess the file's accessibility, but also to fix accessibility issues. So it's good if you know what automated tools, remediation tools are available, and know what they can do. A frequent problem that can be very time-consuming if you do it manually is when a PDF document is created from a Word document, for example, the bounding boxes can be lost. So either you set it by yourself one by one, or you just run the proper automated tool, and it can do it in, again, a couple of clicks. So you can do it in half a minute instead of spending maybe half an hour. And finally, and I think most importantly, so I don't know why I left it as the last one, focus on access. What I mean by that is it's important to make a document technically accessible, have the right text, have everything properly tagged. And it is even more important to have it presented in a way that conveys the information that it intends to. What I mean by that is, for example, sometimes you need to rethink the format. Sometimes the content is presented in a table, but actually it could be more easily presented in a list format. So be a bit open-minded, rethink the format sometimes, and that way you can make the document more accessible. Both the table and the list can be made accessible, but one is providing a better user experience. And there to prioritize, because obviously the aim is to have perfectly accessible, perfectly tagged PDFs, for example, but sometimes you might not have the time, or a company might not have the resources to do that. And so first start with the steps that make sure that the user have access to all the information and in a way that is structured understandably. Then, of course, it's important to tag all the bullets in a bullet list, but that is time consuming. And if you have a time constraint, maybe you wouldn't have time for that. So that's real life example. So these are the 5 things I think I can list quickly in, well, not 5, a bit more minutes. And I hope you found it useful. Back to you, Susanne.
And there is the microphone. Thank you very much, Peter. So we went from the standard, don't fix everything, automation, don't fix everything. And when you talk about efficient remediation, you say maybe we shouldn't fix everything. I don't know where this leaves us, but thank you, all of you. Took slightly longer than expected, but we got a lot of good information. So thank you very much, and thank you also, Markus, for putting the fact checker link in the chat. So now we have time for a little bit of a panel discussion. I don't think there will be a debate, but a discussion at least with my distinguished speakers. So if you could please get back on camera and on mic so we can start with this. And please, if anyone has a question, we have a comment in the chat about remediation and tools and so on. So get back to that. But I was thinking about the standards and the compliance, because Markus, you said very, very beautifully that the PDF UA is a co-standard. That was a new word for me, even if I've been working with standards for a long time, but I really liked that. So if you could say something about, I think I need to ask you to put on your camera again. Mark, yes, there you are. Yeah. So as we are in the EU, and I want to say also that IAAP EU is not strictly EU. As you can hear, we have a speaker from the UK, we have a speaker from Switzerland. So we call it EU plus family and friends. So we involve everyone: Norway, Switzerland, Liechtenstein. The UK is also welcome.
Thank you, very appreciated. Yeah.
Yes. So we started out calling it Europe, and that I thought was a bit too much. Because the reason of the program is really the harmonized standards and the laws that we all share, but they are also shared with some EFTA countries and so. So if I am now based in the EU and I want to comply with the current and hopefully upcoming legislation, how do I use your standard? I mean, standards are voluntary, but where in the ecosystem of standards and laws and technical specifications is the PDF UA standard kind of based? Could you say something about that? How is it going to be used?
Yeah, definitely. It is the fundament. If you want to make a PDF accessible, this is the first level of accessibility. The other requirements are coming on top. And in a lot of standards and guidelines, national or European standards, PDF UA is not referenced explicitly. In Germany, I know there is a kind of writing, they say the current state of the technology related to a certain format. So you should use the standard for a certain format that is widespread or accepted or supported by the readers and so on, by the viewers, by the software. So right now it is PDF UA 1. That was why I said, oh, this will be at least for the next 12 months, but it's good to know what is coming and what the potential of the new standard is. So, and already Peter, I have mentioned it as well. So check for it. There are a lot of free PDF UA1 checkers out there. One of the famous one is the PDF Accessibility Checker pack. We already have posted the link there. And for the other requirements, content-related requirements, there are references to the other standards. Is it the EN standard? Is it WCAG and so on? So if you want to really make it completely accessible, you really have to fulfill all the requirements, but UA is the technically basis. Because if you want to, an assistive technology, a screen reader, really needs the PDF features, the correct PDF features, so that a reader, an assistive technology, a screen reader can grab the content and read out the semantics in the correct way and all this.
Okay, very good. So I think that clarifies. So Peter, you are doing a lot of PDF remediation. What would you say, do your clients know about when they say, I want it to be accessible, do they actually know what they mean? Or is it up to you to support them with what level of what standard, or how do you go about to make sure that the client understands what you're actually doing?
Yeah, well, I think it's a mixed bag. Usually they don't know the full extent of it. And I'm not recurring to the standard when I explain to client what should be done. So with a client, it's better to explain also not only what needs to be done technically, but why is it important, what user need it satisfies. Because if you cite a requirement, then it will definitely not stick. But if you explain that, okay, you need to do a proper contrast in your design, or you need to use headings and all that, and why, how is it useful, then well, I think it's also motivating and it is understandable, and they can do it in a better way, or they can prepare a document a better way to then be made fully accessible. I never actually got a question from a client about the standard directly.
It's interesting because when you work in standards and the legislation kind of piece of it, you get a lot of questions from people who say, what is the actual standard for PDFs? How do I make sure? I mean, how do I know that my document is accessible? So that's why it's kind of interesting that this is still not completely known. So maybe if we all support Marcus in spreading the word about the PDF standard, maybe that will facilitate a bit. So if I turn to you, Jane, so you have clients all over the world, obviously, so you need to comply to different standards and different levels and so on. But your automated tools that create, I'm not talking so much about the remediation now, but more when you create all these 50, I'm feeling so sorry about these 10 people who need to do billions of PDFs every day. But what does your automated tool do with the document? How close to compliance can you get with your automated tools? You are muted.
My apologies. Yeah, let me explain, because it does sound like, crikey, how are these 10 people even getting to sleep or something in
Yeah.
the evening? They don't have enough time. So when you're in those high volume workflows like the clients that we work with, you can't have manual remediation taking place for that many documents. It's just not possible. There's not enough time, left in the universe to remediate all of those documents, and they keep coming every day, every month. There's more of them. So the way our tooling works with them is it takes those documents, funnily enough, similarly actually to the way that Peter addressed the way he approaches manual remediation. So we may take samples of those documents. Let's say it's a utility bill. We'll look at the structure of that document. So we'll go back, we'll analyze it, we'll look at what the structure looks like, and then we'll build an accessibility application around it that maps things like, for example, the tagging onto the structure of that document. And that way you're allowed to build in variation, or you're able to build in variation, and you're able to manage, hundreds of thousands of pages at a time. So in terms of things like tagging, it's 100% effective. Now, obviously, if the document design at the beginning has, poor color contrast or something like that, That's not something that can be fixed by that automated solution. That's something that can be pointed out and changed from a document composition level. But we're talking about people who have got, you know, large systems that generate this content. So yeah, so in terms of effectiveness, then that is that, you know, the tagging element and things like that, that is 100% effective. But you are building those applications to map onto the document structure.
Yeah,
and that's the only way you can do it at scale.
yes,
So.
but would that process then flag issues that your automation cannot fix? But I mean, could it become a report that tells me that I have to do things manually, or is it just the process and you promise to do, you know, these technical things and the rest is kind of somebody else's problem?
So, yeah, so what the solution is doing is it's adding the tagging to a PDF document. So it's not editing a document, it's not changing a document, it's mapping the tagging, the correct tagging onto the document. So it's mapping headings, it's dealing with tables properly, it's making sure that lists are captured as lists, that the correct alternative text is put into any images and things like that. Because these are system generated content, they follow a structure. So it's you're able to build a 100% effective application around that structure. And then once it's in, and you can do the testing. You do that before you would make that go live, though. You don't put documents into a sort of live production setting that are not going to hit that 100% mark in terms of being correct.
Thank you. And we got a question about what good automation tools are there that you can recommend for guaranteeing accessibility. And I think you just responded to that, because I think the market, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the market is that way, that most of the automatic tools do parts of it, but not all of it. You also kind of, to guarantee accessibility, I think it usually needs more than only the automated tools, I think.
Yeah. People are always looking for a magic bullet, unfortunately,
Yes.
but it doesn't exist. I think it's interesting. I think if you talk about automated tools for testing, I think you have to see them as part of the process. So not the end or the only solution. So for example, if you've got a lot of documents that you need to test, and you can put all of those documents into an automated tool, and it can flag ones that have absolutely failed, for example, now you can prioritize those documents and deal with those. You know, but it can't do everything. Unfortunately, there isn't a magic bullet, but you've got to understand what it's there for, what its limitations are, and how it can be used. And it can be used to save time and to help you prioritize.
Obviously, and to let these 10 people sleep sometimes. So Marcus, yes, you wanted to say something.
Okay, yeah. As Jane has showed it for in her presentation, the automation is related to a certain type of documents, and it is not capable of automate everything. It is possible to automate it if you have done it correctly in a Word or in a PowerPoint file. You have done it manually, then you can automated create a UA compliant, WCAG compliant, accessible PDF. Or if you have a high volume PDF with similar layout, an invoice, a report that looks always similar, accounting report or something like this, there you can do it as well. But if it's really individual, if it's designed, fancy layout and so on, this is much more difficult, and there it is right now not possible to do it easily or to automate it at all. And even AI, with AI, because that's the big hope. Oh, we don't have to remediate in future, just use AI. AI is working based on probability. So for if you can recognize this paragraph as a paragraph or this heading as a heading, very easily AI can do it as well. But for the edge cases, that's difficult. So it will be a semi-automated process based on AI. This will come. There are already some tools doing this. Just in the beginning, but I guess at the latest next year, there will be a boost in it with new solutions. But please take into account that you really create technically perfect files, because then you have all the benefits. You have the benefit for reuse, for using it, consuming it on small screens, smartphones, and so on. And if you only optimize it for one screen reader, you don't have these benefits. So there the standards are coming in. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we did get a comment or a question in the chat about if accurate AI tagging actually exists yet. And we also have a question about how soon do we think that automation will overcome manual remediation? I think we kind of touched upon all of these questions, but I don't know if anyone wants to predict when AI can do all of this, or when automation can kind of be better or as good as manual remediation. Anyone had a short comment on that or a thought?
I don't think that AI will take over fully, but what I hope for, and soon, if this will be a priority when developing AI, that the manual part can be reduced to a very small amount. I think it will be for a good while always necessary that there's a non-artificial intelligence that looks at it and make sure that it's as it's intended. I talked about in my presentation about being flexible and having a better presentation than what you actually see. So I think hopefully soon it will get much better, but it will take a while until we are not needed.
Okay, Markus, a short one on this?
Short answer, AI will move to the viewers. This is definitely clear. It will move to the viewers, to the readers, so that people with disabilities will be able to read bad PDFs or untagged PDFs, not 100%, but better than currently. And definitely it will help producers create better accessible PDFs, but the reliability will never be 100% based on AI. So it will be a help, but we need nevertheless a clear workflow, a proper workflow from source formats, because they are more reliable and the user knows, oh, this was by intent and this was not estimated by an AI. So there is a kind of a difference, and reliability will really pop up. What is the original content without AI in between? Yeah.
Yeah, true. I like when Peter says non-artificial intelligence. So somebody has to do a little bit more of human thinking, maybe. But Jane, does your I mean, you have a set of tools, kind of a package of things, a portfolio. Do you use AI, or is that a secret, or I don't know? We didn't talk about.
No. So I think we would probably, and just echoing what Markus was talking about when he was mentioning it. I mean, AI is a term that's used. It's a catch-all that covers literally everything, and there's a broad spectrum of AI. I would say that what we're using predominantly in some of our solutions is what might be more conventionally known as kind of machine learning, pattern recognition. And it's to do with things like, as Markus mentioned, analyzing the structure of a document, in order to assess, what's a heading, what's a paragraph, what's a table, those kind of things. So that's not in our high volume tools. These are we have sort of two different areas that we deal with. One is in high volume and one is in other types of what we might call static or ad hoc documents. We do use AI there. I think it's interesting that it's a point that Peter made, actually. It's when reducing manual intervention is good, so even if AI and automation isn't perfect, if you can deal with more documents because you've given some of the process over to automation or over to AI, and it means that even if you still have to, manually check or manually remediate, you're still having to do that, you've got more time to do more documents, and that's good for everybody. So
yeah, I mean, that's how we see auto captions, at least in English and other large languages. I mean, they're certainly not perfect, but that means that we can caption many more videos and meetings and things, which is better for more people. So sometimes kind of progress over perfection. We have one interesting question here. Can you give me 5 quick reasons? I think I'll just ask you for one, about why PDF still being a better option than EPUB. I don't know if anyone actually thinks PDF is better than EPUB, but it's certainly more used. So does anyone know why this is the case, Markus?
Sure. I do not need 5 quick reasons. One reason is enough, because PDF is there is an established ecosystem. It is used, it is widespread, so we have to deal with it to make it accessible. That's the main reason.
But why isn't people using EPUB? Peter, do you have an idea?
I don't, but I don't use EPUB a lot either. So
Okay.
I think it goes back to what Marcus said, that we are exposed to PDF much more. We just use that.
So we didn't get this question from the audience, but my question is kind of, why do we still need PDFs? Can't we get out of PDFs? But I know you are all document lovers, so I won't ask that question to you. But we have something similar from about NHS in England, so the health large agency there, who is, according to this person, generally forbidding the use of PDF because it's not accessible, quote unquote, and then a link, so I can share that link. So do we think that the new standards or new tools are likely to change that mindset? Because I know, and I recently had a discussion about if PDFs can ever become accessible, or if it's kind of built in that they can't be really accessible in the same way that HTML can. So do you have any thoughts on that? Will that mindset change?
So I think it has to change, because PDFs are in existence and they're here to stay for a while. I think I would echo Marcus's point about the ecosystem as well. I mean, when we're working with customers, you asked, you know, why are we not, for example, doing EPUB? Well, we have to meet customers where they are, and large composition system generated content that's in all large organizations, you know, produces formats other than EPUB. So, you know, some of them don't even produce PDF. They still produce old print formats that have to be converted into PDF before they're even sent out through digital channels. So, yeah, I mean, I think we have to meet people where they are. Again, Susanna, your point about, you know, progress over perfection, you know, let's make the PDFs that exist in the world accessible. And there's lots of ways that we can do that. And I would only add one other thing, which is the UK government, of which, you know, obviously the NHS is kind of part of that public sector, right from the beginning decided that it wanted everything to be HTML. Everything needed to be a web page. And
it's not against PDF specifically, it's more we want it to be HTML.
Yeah, and unfortunately, my opinion as a document lover, as you put it, is that some things just need to be documents. So let's make those documents accessible for everyone.
But we just have 1 minute, but shouldn't the PDFs be fixed much earlier? I mean, I don't want any one of you to get out of business, but aren't we doing this a little bit backwards? I mean, why is it even possible to make the documents so badly so that you then have to fix them afterwards? Aren't we kind of working backwards in this? To me, it has always been a question about documents. Why are we in this situation?
Yeah, Susanna, definitely. It's a waste of time, money, and efforts to remediate PDFs. And right now, this is the main workflow to make accessible PDFs still. Okay, we can send it to India or somewhere else to remediate it afterwards, but this is waste of time. And we should really change our mindset there. That's our approach. We want to make PDF accessibility mainstream so that you do it right in PowerPoint. Let's say my presentation, as an example, I have done my presentation with our tool. I create the compliant accessible PDF. It's done. No post-processing, no post-remediation, and so on. And this is the goal. Otherwise, we will never achieve that PDF accessibility is becoming mainstream. So it has to become easier.
Yes.
No post-processing.
That is a perfect way to end this, because I really agree, and I think many other people agree as well. But we do have the support of the standards, we have the support of automation, and we have a very good workflow and way of doing things and remediation. And I know Peter is also training people in making documents accessible from the start. So I think you're all kind of supporting this towards the objective of making it easier, all of you from the 3 different angles that you are attacking this. So thank you very much for all of you to share your knowledge. And again, I know we could have talked for hours. All of you are really so knowledgeable that you should have taken a 3-hour part for all of the presentations. But thank you for almost keeping time. And I just want to end with saying that the next large event that we do from IAAP EU is the 4th anniversary of the Web Accessibility Directive. So we celebrate the directive every year. And we have a tradition where we work with, we have workshops adjacent to the events we do. So on the 23rd of September, we have a member-only workshop in Brussels, and it's on-site only. But you can become a member so that you can have all the cool stuff we do in the workshops. And we will work mainly on the requirements that are in the EN standard that go beyond WCAG, which is still a big issue for many public sector bodies and monitoring agencies and suppliers in the EU. And then on the 24th of September, I'm trying to say, there is the external event, which is a hybrid event. We are on site in Brussels, but also everyone is welcome online. So save the dates for this. And I'm showing an image of a big crowd in Brussels outside of the Bourse. It's not us, but I Googled a picture for a free picture on a crowd in Brussels, and this is what I got. So it's a little bit fake marketing, but anyway, you're very welcome to come to Brussels or join us online for the Web Accessibility Directive anniversary. And with that, I would like to thank my fantastic panelists and all of you listening. We will send out the recording of this, and also, of course, Marcus' perfectly accessible PDF document of his presentation. And all the links that we shared will also be in that email, so you don't need to look for them again. And please do reach out if you have any questions about IAAP or anything else we can help you with. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice rest of your afternoon.